Welcome back. In the last episode, we cut out these motor mounts, kind of had them all set up to weld, and I decided I was going to MIG weld one and TIG weld the other. So here I am setting a timer so we can see how long the MIG welding takes. Now MIG welding is a little easier process. It automatically feeds out a wire that you can weld with, so there's no foot pedal or any other controls, just a trigger that you're holding. And I'm just going to burn this one in.
Suppression. The use of marijuana.
You can see this is kind of a violent welding technique. There's sparks flying everywhere. It looks kind of dangerous. In stark contrast to the TIG welding we're going to see in a minute here. But I haven't sped this footage up at all, and it only takes a couple minutes to weld these two together. Quick and easy. And just like that, the MIG welded motor mount is done. 2 minutes and 16. So now I'm going to TIG weld the second motor mount. TIG welding requires you to use a hand with a torch, and then I'm adding in filler with my other hand, and I'm running a foot pedal with my foot to control the amount of power that the welder is putting out. You can see there's no sparks flying. It's a cleaner overall welding experience, but kind of the running joke is that people that TIG weld are like Instagram welders, where they're only really concerned about the way that stuff looks, and it's not as usable a process as MIG welding. So that's why I was kind of taking pictures to make light of it. Yeah, gotta post that to the socials. Now, unfortunately, when I welded that, I got it too hot. So you'll see we have a nice arc, and then it starts to spark and sputter. So I was getting porosity in the weld there, and that is why the next section is fast forwarded. I had to cut out that porosity and clean up those areas because I had some contamination there. So then I'm going to take the grinder, cut that part off, get those areas out of there. So I was trying to make fun of how TIG welding takes longer, but it ended up taking forever because I had to clean the part all off and then re-weld the whole thing. So yeah, MIG welding definitely won this one. Now that I have the motor mounts welded up, I'm going to put them on and mark on the frame where the holes need to be drilled. So I'm using a transfer punch, which is basically a metal punch that fits perfectly inside the ID and then allows me to whack and get a point of reference to drilling. Now in order to drill them straight, I'm taking a piece of aluminum here and I'm drilling a hole that's the same size as the drill bit I'm going to use to drill through the frame, and I can clamp that, and then I know that it's going to follow the hole that I have in that aluminum part and get me a nice true hole. It's going to be square to the frame. I'm just going to punch a 1/2-inch drill through there, and that's going to allow me to have a little drill jig. In the end, it didn't end up working out perfectly, but it was better than just going at it with a hand drill. So here I have that part clamped in there, and I'm just going to go to town drilling for what took much longer than I would ever want to drill, but it's only a drill. Frame is prepped. We got our sleeves in there. A little bit of steps, we can fill that in with weld. We're gonna TIG weld these puppies in. Yeah. Sleeves are fully welded both sides. Nice and strong, so now that frame's not going to bend in. Just going to buzz those flat, make sure we don't have any pieces that are hanging out. And we'll get the motor bolted up. Drip, drip, drip. So ignore the drip for the moment. And what we've done is I took the transfer case, the 241C, and I put it on the back here, and I'm coming into a little contact. You know, I can get the driveline angle where I want. Coming into contact a little bit there. That's fine. However, the transfer case is hanging down really low, right? And which means the drive shaft would come through here, which is kind of where I want the cross member to come across. So, considering clocking the transfer case up, modifying this sheet metal to allow that to move up higher, and then moving forward from there. You know, that way we have the drive shaft tucked up higher, we have the transfer case tucked up out of the way, and the cross member will have more clearance. So I think that's the direction we're going to go. I'm going to pull the studs off of the transfer case now, so I can just free rotate it without the studs limiting its travel, and we can test fit it in that location and see if that's going to work out for us. Transfer case is out, and we have that area there. I did look on the inside of the vehicle. That is underneath the seat, so I do have some room there. It's kind of a pedestal built on the interior for the seat, so there's some upward mobility there. Just going to cut that out and see if we can clock this transfer case up in place. Cool. Okay. So I removed the studs, so now this can free rotate, right? The commercially available clocking rings do 16 degrees up. So what I'm gonna do is place this stud in to hold the original. Okay. There we are. Now we're at the original angle, which as you can see hangs way down. And I don't like it. What we'll do that's 10 degrees right here. Now, that's 15 degrees up. Right there. So basically that is where we would end up with a 16-degree clock. It's pretty well flat. May end up in that floor area up front where we had discussed earlier. May end up making a little drive shaft room there. I don't really know yet, but that's much better. Now I don't mind that kind of being at that angle. That's a lot better. If it was maybe there, it'd be a little bit better, but we can go way up like that. We can do that 16 degrees, that'll work. So I'm gonna find a way to hold this up, and then we can start designing a trans cross member with that in mind. Cool. This is where the transfer case would typically bolt up to the transmission. And this is the frame over here, and this is how far it hangs down. If I rotate this up, we gain a ton of clearance, right? From here to here. And the drive shaft will still clear. So there's a sweet spot there where we have clearance and the drive shaft still fits. So we're gonna do that. If you look at the rest of the install right now, that output shaft is nicely centered in the transmission tunnel. Transmission belly pan is slightly above the frame rails, which is good. We have our angle downward. Our motor mounts are installed and holding the engine up. So, come a long way. This is our current status. So I'm gonna pull off that adapter that goes in between the transfer case and the transmission so we can bring that over to a friend's house, and he's gonna pull the data off so we can make a clocking ring.
All right. So it was a little confusing there. Instead of using a commercially available 16 degree, I'm going to be using a 12 degree clocking ring that we're gonna make. So thanks for following along. In the next episode, we'll dive in for some more fun. Don't forget to subscribe. Have a good one, guys.